Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your pal Nomz here, and today we are doing a good old-fashioned response-style video to a channel called Rocket Sloth. Now, personally, I've never been a fan of Rocket Sloth, and recently, after the Halo Infinite showcase of the campaign and multiplayer, they put out this video called Should the Halo Fanbase Be Worried Right Now? And the thumbnail called the showcase a letdown. Rocket Sloth, at least from what I've seen, are not particularly fond of the latter two Halo titles, those being Halo 4 and 5, and near as I can tell, they aren't particularly fond of 343 Industries either. Now, I can absolutely understand why, for the most part, but let's face it, there has very much been an internet climate built on the foundation of shitting on 343 Industries for how they've handled the Halo franchise over the past decade. What I'm getting at is Rocket Sloth seem to have taken the contrarian route with this video, and I have no doubt it was because they did so not out of logic, but more so to keep with the internet narrative they have aligned themselves with, and as a result, the community gave them some backlash for it. So let's take a look at the ratio, shall we? Let's see. Wow, 3,600 dislikes and 3,100 likes. Wowza. Yikes, that is not good. Although, I suppose it could be worse. Don't get me wrong, I have some issues with what I've seen so far from Halo Infinite, namely the monetized armor coatings, which I'm still very skeptical of, and the reintroduction of ADS into the gameplay, which 343 tried to slip under the radar in their multiplayer overview trailer, because they sure as shit didn't show it off in the campaign trailer from last year. But that aside, I've never said anything to the effect of Halo Infinite's gameplay is trash, or Halo is dead, or Halo Infinite isn't Halo, or in Rocket Sloth's case, that Halo Infinite showcase was a letdown. But Rocket Sloth decided to take this route, so let's see what they have to say about it. They also made a response to the backlash that, don't worry, we will also be covering that too at the very end of the video. But anyway, let's jump straight into the response.
When it comes to E3, we've all had those experiences where a trailer drops for a game franchise that you really love and all the little hairs on the back of your neck stand up and just the hype is uncontrollable. You're so excited, you absolutely can't believe what you're seeing. And of course, with the highest anticipation for Halo Infinite being showcased at E3 and we would finally get a new look at this game for the first time in pretty much a year, the Halo fanbase's hype train has been completely off the charts. So when E3 finally did come and the Xbox showcase for 2021 arrived, Luke and I both didn't really have those feelings of immense, overwhelming excitement like we had maybe anticipated considering how big of Halo fans we are. And when we look to the rest of the Halo community, it didn't seem like we were the only ones feeling this way after the event.
Well, based on the numbers, I think it's safe to say that you're part of a very, very small minority of the Halo community. The letdown came last year in 2020 when we were promised gameplay for the campaign that showed us 8 minutes, a good portion of which was only cutscenes, and the demo in question was designed with the Xbox One in mind and wasn't anywhere close to finished in terms of graphical detail, rendering, and polish. You would have had a much easier time selling your current perspective last year. One thing that Halo fans took encouragement from in the 2021 campaign trailer was the fact that a lot of the criticisms were addressed and fixed. The graphical fidelity was fixed, Halo Infinite now looks drop-dead gorgeous, and the weapons in question looked much better and much more Halo-esque, particularly the M50 sidekick, which showed some aesthetical modifications to it, of which I've grown very fond of since the multiplayer was showcased. As to your underwhelmed reaction to Halo's presentation, I mean, could you have just simply set them too high? I mean, I don't know what you were expecting. Personally, I was happy with the amount of campaign footage they showed us, the reason being the 2020 demo showed us enough about the game's story, world, and premise that showing any more would possibly venture into spoiler territory. We know how the game is going to play, so the Chief Cortana cutscene, which was beautifully animated, composed, and written, I might add, was a nice glimpse into the campaign without revealing too much. I don't know about you guys, but when I play Infinite for the first time, I want a lot of surprises to look forward to. Just as long as the surprises don't involve bullshitting characters back from the dead.
After a year of virtually nothing from Halo other than speculation, this event, of course, is a time where Microsoft had a chance to squash a lot of the fears and concerns that the fan base had. But after this event, it seems like fans had maybe more questions than before, with not a whole lot of answers to the pre-existing questions that the rest of the fan base has had.
I mean, I have questions about the campaign, as I'm sure many do, but Fans wanted to see the graphics fixed, and so they were. Fans wanted to see the multiplayer, and they did. Fans wanted to know if Chief would have an AI companion for the campaign, and now they know. I'd say the showcase, while adding some questions, answered plenty. And the fanbase you are referring to, I'm pretty sure you're inflating their abundance to validate your stance on this. As I said, you are very much in the minority on this one, Rocket Sloth.
Halo is the biggest and most anticipated game for Xbox, so not only were we surprised to see its section of the conference being put in the middle of the entire event, but after you cut out the generic talking and introduction before the actual gameplay reveal, we pretty much only got 4 minutes out of the entire 90-minute conference dedicated to Halo Infinite. And before we even look into what was fully shown off, we had talked beforehand about what we expected from the Xbox presentation, and considering this was a 90-minute presentation, we were thinking we were going to be seeing some massive Halo Infinite stuff, somewhere ranging from at least 20 to 30 minutes of Halo Infinite information, considering last time we got a reveal it was about 10 to 15 minutes.
20 to 30 minutes on Halo? Yeah, now I know your expectations are up in the fucking stratosphere. Are you out of your mind? 20 to 30 minutes. Firstly, they may as well have just shown you the entire game at that point. Secondly, sure, it could have been longer, but 30 fucking minutes? That's nuts! And thirdly, no. Last year's trailer wasn't 15 minutes, it was actually a little more than half that. It was 8 minutes long. And lastly, you are forgetting that this is an Xbox event, not a Halo event. I'm not saying Halo Showcase couldn't have been longer, but personally I think it was actually a very good decision that Microsoft didn't just suck Halo's dick the whole time, because they showed they have a lot more to offer than just Halo. Whereas before, Microsoft was so short fucking sighted, they were relying almost entirely on Halo to sell their hardware and their gaming brand. Thankfully, that's no longer the case.
And since this is supposed to be bigger and more exciting than ever before, we were expecting quite a bit. But instead, we got like a 7.5 minute block with a little bit of talking, and then a little section showing off part of the Halo Infinite story through a cutscene. I mean, it could have been a QuickTime event, but we're pretty sure it was a cutscene. And then right after that, we got a 2-minute trailer for Halo Infinite's multiplayer, being the first time we've actually gotten a first look at the Halo Infinite multiplayer. And this thing had a ton of fast-paced editing. A lot of new features and gadgets and weapons were shown off. But yeah, it was definitely a very condensed thing. But I think this is where a lot of the biggest criticisms come from what they showed off at E3, with the fact that with the first look of Halo Infinite's multiplayer being so fast-paced in the fashion that it was, there's no way of getting a fair idea of what the game will actually feel like. A lot of people on things like Twitter talked about this as well, and I think after watching this trailer, I don't think anyone is explicitly trying to make a claim as to how Halo Infinite's multiplayer is going to be, whether saying it's great or bad. It just seems like after you watch the trailer, if this is all we get for Halo Infinite, a lot of players are kind of just left feeling unsure as to how they should feel about the game. Personally, I don't feel like this trailer does a good job at representing what the gameplay will feel like, whether that's for better or for worse.
I mean, yeah, it was condensed and had some fast-paced editing, sure, but again, they had to show off as much as possible in the time frame given to them, because again, Microsoft had other shit to show off at the presentation. And I mean, it's a shame that you felt like you didn't get a solid idea from that trailer for how the multiplayer would feel, but I certainly took a lot from it. Even made a whole video breaking everything down. Almost every frame had some new piece of info about what we can expect for the multiplayer. It's short, condensed, but had a lot to digest, and that included the campaign portion as well.
Now still, despite the criticisms, when it comes to the story perspective, it still looks like the story is going to be pretty strong. Narratively speaking, everything we've seen from day one of Halo Infinite's reveal has had us fully captivated with every moment and every interaction that we've seen that has been shown off. We wish we've been able to see more, but nonetheless, it's still really cool every time we just get that little snippet or that little sneak peek into what's going on in the narrative with Halo. There wasn't anything we saw where we're like, Halo is over, this is the end, the multiplayer is dead on arrival. We just felt like we couldn't get a fair and accurate vibe for what the multiplayer is going to play like. Is this going to play like Halo 3, or is it going to play like Halo 5 Guardians? You could watch this trailer and still have absolutely no idea what the game game is going to feel like.
Well, I don't think it's a mystery. What 343 has done is toned down some of the overly obnoxious movement mechanics from Halo 5 and increased the emphasis on sandbox like in Halo 3. That's what they've showcased in both the campaign and multiplayer demos. It's not going to play like either. It's going to play like a hybrid of both. And so far, based on the reception, that's what the majority of the community wants. I certainly do. I'm mega curious.
And after the trailer and the whole Halo segment was finished with E3, the more we thought about it, the more we felt like things maybe should have been done a little bit differently, especially towards the end of the E3 conference when they were giving the same amount of time to Forza Horizon 5, which is a game franchise that we're not like the biggest fans of, but the style that was used to present that game was significantly better than Halo Infinite's, because at the end of the little segment on Forza Horizon 5, we at least felt like we knew what the game was about and what we could expect from the gameplay and some of the features along the way, and doing that type of narrated overview of the game is definitely an approach that maybe should have been done with Halo Infinite.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was very dumb that Microsoft allowed as much time as they did for Forza, to be completely honest. I felt like that presentation went on for twice as long as the Infinite presentation. And I don't hate the Forza franchise by any means, but let's be honest, it's cars. It's a game about driving cars. No offense to Forza fans, but I think Halo has a lot more intricacies, mechanics, and story to present than a game about driving cars. I personally do think Halo Infinite should have had some extra minutes added at Forza's expense, but that doesn't mean I thought Halo Infinite Showcase didn't answer fans' questions or criticism in the time that was given.
Then the even bigger question that we still don't fully understand is that on Halo's YouTube channel, there's a multiplayer event scheduled for the next day after this Halo Infinite multiplayer reveal thing that maybe will go more in depth into some of the things we saw in multiplayer and explain what we actually saw, which is great, but why didn't they announce that at the E3 event? Because if anything, then at least Halo fans across the board would know that there's more stuff coming and more to expect immediately, rather than just feeling like we're walking into another age-long section of not knowing what's coming up in the future with Halo Infinite.
I mean, yeah, they could have, but they didn't have to, and it sounds to me like you found this out after scripting this video out, and you just added this in because you had to mention it, because this piece of information destroyed the premise of your argument, which was Halo's E3 presentation was a letdown, fans should be worried. Even though there's another 12-minute presentation within the 24 hours after the presentation. Oops, I guess we jumped the gun on that one, you guys probably thought. So now, to keep your perspective intact, the stance switches from, oh, but hey, they should have told us. They could have told us, sure, but it's also your responsibility to do your research before trying to have the hot take. This applies to everyone, and the fact is, Halo fans did get a deeper dive into multiplayer after the E3 event, because this presentation took place on the Halo YouTube channel because it was a Halo event, not an Xbox event.
Actually, alongside the announcement stuff that we saw at E3, 343 posted a blog post which seemingly had way more information than anything we actually got to see in the E3 conference. For instance, we got some really cool info posted in the blog, like Big Team Battle now having 24 players, that there would be a training mode that lets you practice against bots along with a shooting range, and that bots could be used and added to custom games to fill empty spots. There'd be things like customizable vehicles, and they announced that it won't have loot boxes or any element of chance when you do decide to purchase a customization, along with the fact that any purchase that you can make won't affect gameplay and would be strictly cosmetic, and they even alluded to flights coming out later this summer. All of these little announcements are incredibly exciting, and the fact that 343's blog posts communicates a lot of these great ideas leads to more good faith that we could have gotten during the E3 event.
Why are you surprised that there was more information on 343's own website that they control than in a live presentation where they would have to speed through everything in order to communicate as much as possible to the audience? This is nothing new. They did the same thing last year after the campaign demo, even acknowledging some of the hilarious memes the community made at their expense, and they were good sports about it. Why is this all of a sudden a problem now?
I almost wish they would have just given an extra 2 minutes or something where someone just read off the blog post and said, hey, there's some multiplayer reveal event happening the next day, in case you didn't know and you wanted to maybe tune in for that. That might be something you're interested in, considering I feel like a lot of people tuned into E3 just for Halo Infinite.
Again, that's your responsibility to know when these events are taking place. Also, that's not true. I'm sure there were plenty of people who were excited for other games at E3. I was pretty impressed with Psychonauts 2, The Ascent, Back for Blood, Diablo 2 Resurrected, Battlefield fucking stole the show, and hell, even Forza and Sea of Thieves looked good, as well as Redfall. Yes, I liked Redfall, sue me.
So when it comes down to questioning whether or not the Halo fanbase should be worried about Halo Infinite right now, Luke and I would probably have to argue that you don't have any reason to be more worried than you already were, but I also don't think anything shown off at E3 should be the catalyst for the fear that the Halo end times are upon us.
Then why are you making this video? I'm confused. You say the trailer shouldn't make them any more worried than they might already be, but also that the Halo end times aren't upon us? Why do I get the feeling this video doesn't actually have a point and was just made for attention? Oh, because that's exactly what happened.
Just because the specific Microsoft-led presentation didn't really live up to the hype, it doesn't mean that Halo Infinite won't or can't live up to the hype either. It is just frustrating after this long drought of having absolutely nothing Halo Infinite related that this is all we got. Yeah, it can feel a little bit like a downer, though hopefully this is the breaking of the silence that will maybe have 343 continue to communicate more with what we can expect from Halo Infinite, and maybe with this multiplayer event that's coming up, we'll see something or anything. It's really weird they didn't promote this during the actual event.
Why do I also get the feeling that your negativity towards Microsoft's presentation wasn't because of how it performed, but because of how it lacked content that you can use for your channel? I mean, you guys are a Halo channel, are you not? So when there's a content drought, your channel suffers because you need something to talk about. What was really telling to me is when you said the breaking of the silence. And I've seen several other Halo YouTubers get frustrated at the lack of infinite content to make videos on, namely Hidden Xperia. I do like Xperia, don't get me wrong, but he has expressed frustration in the past of having to make other videos regarding Halo since there's been a huge content drought regarding Halo Infinite. And from one content creator to another, I can absolutely understand this. But in your case, Rocket Sloth, in addition to wanting the contrarian take on this, I think this video was originally made out of bitterness and fear for being content starved for Halo Infinite with your channel once again. When you said people were only watching this for Halo, I think you were projecting because that's exactly what you were doing. And it's not hard to see why, but your bitterness towards Microsoft was also very telling because the majority of people loved Microsoft's showcase and felt it was very strong. Not without its criticisms, of course, but as a gamer, I was salivating at the E3 conference. And while I was mostly excited for Halo Infinite, it was far from the only reason why I watched Microsoft's showcase.
Okay, now just real quick, since we've gotten the main criticisms out of the way, there were some things that we did really want to acknowledge because we were kind of really excited about those looking back after we saw the initial presentation. Like seeing Master Chief floating through space and you can see his armor with all the little dings and scuffs on it. We really liked that. From what we've seen of the grappling hook, it does look like it could be integrated really well. This whole dynamic with Master Chief and this AI thing looks like it's going to dive into a character perspective of the Master Chief in maybe a deeper way than what we've seen from Halo in a long time, but without necessarily jeopardizing Master Chief's own personality and what makes him a character, which is something that we would think would be really awesome to see a closer in-depth look of. And on multiplayer, a lot of the skins and armor that we could see in the actual gameplay looked really great. We really liked the way that the BR and some of the other guns just looked when they were in action in the short snippets that we did see. Sure, there was some armor abilities or features that did look a little bit questionable, like this little shield thing that deflects the bullets back, which apparently from the blog post is a one-time type use item, like a bubble shield would be from Halo 3, so it's not something that's going to be likely heavily abused. And then there were some other things like ordnance drops that we're kind of unsure of. That one gun that looks like a spear launcher or whatever that just wrecks that warthog was awesome, though the gravity hammer, not really too much of a fan of. It reminded me more of the Halo 4 and 5 era gravity hammer when I really just like the brute power of the Halo 3 and Halo Reach gravity hammer better. Choppers were back, which we're really excited about, and the Banished aesthetic looks really great, though I do have to say, not really a fan of the Banished Banshee. Super nitpicky, I know, it just kind of looks like more of a Mega Block aesthetic, though gotta give Luke credit, he absolutely loved the way that that Banshee looked, so to each their own. So yeah, despite us getting just 4 minutes of Halo stuff, there are things to be excited about. It just seems like a really pretty odd presentation overall, but I don't think anything from the presentation should be vindictive over how Halo Infinite could be when this game finally releases. That's going to be up to 343 and what they do over the next following months, and how they showcase everything, and how they convey what we can expect from Halo Infinite over the next following months as well. But I don't know, maybe we're on our own, maybe we're the only ones who are just lost with the Halo Infinite E3 reveal or showcase, but let us know what your thoughts were in the comment section down below. We did have a lot of fun watching this and streaming it over on our Twitch channel, so if you guys aren't following us on Twitch, do check us out. There's a link in the description.
Okay, so that's pretty much the end of their video, and, well, they said they might be in the minority. They are, and they said they wanted to get people's feedback, and they did. It was not good. And so Rocket Sloth decided to make a video to address the backlash they received, and here's what they had to say.
So yesterday, after the Halo Infinite segment during Xbox's E3 showcase, we made our own video where we talked about whether or not the Halo fanbase should be worried about Halo, especially after we were left kind of neutral on the shortness of the presentation when it came to Halo.
But you weren't neutral, were you? That was the crux of your video. The presentation was a letdown, largely because it was too short, meaning less Infinite content to talk about, meaning less videos to make.
And oof, the backlash here is definitely something else. I mean, when it comes to likes and dislikes, we almost got ratioed.
We dodged the bullet.
So we decided it'd be interesting to consolidate some of our most common criticisms, and we could have a fair discussion. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Oh, so you're going to address your most common criticisms? You sure you aren't just going to cherry pick the most stupid, inconsequential, weightless comments that were mean to you so you guys can act like a bunch of pathetic victims who were unfairly called out?
This was some clickbait. This is a mistake. Rocket Sloth's video on E3 is a bad take. How dare they say that they expected more? It's only been a year and they're not hyped with 4 minutes. Okay, bear with me. I think maybe you guys are getting a little too carried away. We thought it was weird that they didn't show much and that they placed it in the middle of the conference instead of at the end of the conference, but surely everybody would get that we're not criticizing.
Yeah, so you're doing what just about every other YouTuber who can't take criticism does. You're cherry picking the easiest comments to respond to that are hating on you and not presenting any arguments. Again, to make yourselves look like victims. Not to mention, the fuck is with this music? As if your audience wasn't already pissed off enough with you.
No! You're wrong at the core. Your opinions on this conference are leaving us sore. Your different thoughts on Halo make me insecure, so let me tell you you're garbage and your opinions are poor.
Praised it, and you're a 343 showbation. You're what's wrong with Halo, face it. Rocket's toxic, don't try and erase it. Praised it, and you're a 343 showbation. You're what's wrong with Halo, face it. Rocket's toxic, don't try and...
Yeah, I'm gonna need some Jack Daniels to sit through this cringe. You got called out and you're acting like the pettiest fucker. Like, it's not a big deal. So why, instead of just taking it on the chin, are you mocking the community?
Wait, I think I did say a lot of really positive things about what we did see at the trailer. Like, there was that gun with the spear and Master Chief. I mean, look, I even said that I loved the way that the new chopper looked, and how is the video even clickbait if it's literally the topic we're discussing? Is that thing gonna just keep going in the background? I think we can chill out. Death threats. Halo fans upset. Stay in your lane, go back to being no-shoot sweats.
You did not receive death threats. Come on, that's the oldest smokescreen pity me card in the book.
Don't think, just roll with the punches. That is if you ever want to break out of the hundreds. Sorry man, but another negative-ish video and I'll have to unsubscribe. I can't let anyone kill my hype for this game.
And now you're back to highlighting completely irrelevant comments that received 0 likes and do not represent the majority of the community backlash you've received.
Huh.
I'm sorry, Weston. Please don't unsub Weston. All I said was that I wish that the multiplayer livestream was announced during the presentation. Weston, forgive me, Weston.
in all actuality, we're kind of just going with the flow like we always do, but it is always funny that in the Halo fan base, or really any fan base, the amount of backlash that you can get for having a different opinion is definitely something else. I don't know who elected Luke and I to be the entire voice of the Halo community, but could you imagine, like, if I and the dude who literally has a framed picture of Call of Duty Ghosts were in charge of voicing everyone's opinion?
You're giving yourselves way too much credit. People were annoyed with your take not because it was a difference of opinion, understand. If your video's title said why we thought the Halo Infinite showcase was a letdown, I don't think you would have gotten the backlash. But the way it was marketed was just an obvious cry for attention based on reasoning that wasn't very logical. And in addition to that, you said you were speaking for a large proportion of Halo fans. If you try to speak for other people and they disagree with you, that is going to piss them off. And lastly, this is the internet. People get backlash. Get over it. You could have properly addressed it, but instead you tried to act like a condescending cunt.
But I do think for the most part, the followers who have supported us do understand that to an extent.
Then why did you pretend that the majority of people were acting like shitheads to you? If you actually honestly felt that the majority of fans were quite reasonable, why were you trying to misrepresent them by showing the worst parts of the community from the minority of your comments section?
We have a very specific palette for what we like and what we don't like, and we will fight to defend our opinions on topics, even if somehow we're objectively wrong on a subjective issue. Maybe we're not used to the attention of people who aren't subscribed coming to our channel and commenting on our commentations, but hey, if we can write more hit songs like this one, maybe we'll keep going with it.
Alright, just don't cry when the Halo fans come knocking on your door the next time you piss them off. Don't act like the community is being unreasonable when you're the ones acting like victims, saying that people are being mean to you, and then smugly acting like you can take criticism and haters in stride when you can't, which is why you're actively antagonizing them by saying, yeah, we'll do it again, no problem. You guys handled this like condescending pricks. Anyway, Rocket Sloth here is pretty much done, but I thought I'd go the extra mile and show an actual representation of his comment section.
Stick around.
Let's get started. This video is so disingenuous that it literally hurts. You're literally trying to spin it as the reality of the reception being bad when it was actually received really well. That kind of purposeful deceit looks really bad on you and will turn people away from your content. You're definitely better than this. Sounds reasonable. Quote, us Halo fans, bracket, really he means himself, and bracket, think the trailer didn't live up to the hype, bracket, everyone in the comments saying the trailer made them feel overwhelmed, close bracket, laughing emoji. Yes, I'd say that's also accurate. It's good to keep hype in check, but this feels a bit nitpicky. Fair enough. I've only seen a few people super upset with the reveal. Everyone else seems to be happy with what we've got. Again, this is also accurate. Dude, literally everyone else I've seen has loved this reveal. Okay, maybe that's a bit too biased, but still not unreasonable. He disagrees, but he's nice about it. Looks like someone was banking off a negative response to get some clicks and likes. But when it's revealed people enjoy the reveal, it shot you in the foot, LMAO. Yeah, this guy's on the money right here. Quote, year of absolutely nothing, end quote. I don't know, we had a pretty solid amount of blog posts about Infinite with new screenshots and dev news. That's true. 343 did manage to keep us up to date with screenshots, blog posts, images, concept art, not to mention the novels they released that shaped a clearer picture of Infinite's presence that the diehards would read, namely Shadows of Reach. And finally, you're good to have your opinion and all, but it seems like you're trying to skew the reception of this as negative, when about everything I've seen in the comments, the like/dislike ratio and even your comments suggest the opposite. It's okay to have the minority opinion, as everyone does with something, but don't try to pass it off as a major one when all evidence suggests otherwise. Sorry, Rocket Sloth, gonna be a fat dislike just for that one. And yeah, this guy's comment pretty much sums up everyone's grievances with Rocket Sloth's video. So as you can see, this is far more fairly representative of the general Halo community's reaction to your misfire of a video, Rocket Sloth. It's not a big deal, you got some backlash, you got called out, and instead of just ignoring it or addressing it genuinely, you tried to make it out like the Halo fanbase was being unreasonable, but ultimately you were just butthurt about getting put in your place. But anyway guys, that's pretty much the end of this response video. Thanks for watching. Before I go, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon supporters for all of their contributions to my work. work. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to check out the Patreon, the link is in the description. Also, if you haven't already, feel free to check out the channel's Discord server. What Discord basically is an online community where followers of this channel go to congregate and talk about a whole range of different topics, ranging from gaming, movies, anime, and pretty much anything pop culture related. Check it out at your leisure, and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Also, lastly, I want to thank A British Potato for helping me with the audio of this video. Check out his channel below. He also does responses, so chances are you'll find something you like. Anyway, here's one last thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.